Picture two people, face to face, less than 10 centimeters apart, close enough to breathe in the smell of the other person's skin. And then, out of nowhere, one of them decides to press their mouth against the other person's mouth, stripped of any context. That's one of the strangest things a human being does, swapping saliva, on purpose, as a way of showing affection. But the answer for why we do this is way stranger than it sounds. Because, believe it or not, a huge part of humanity doesn't even kiss the way you're picturing right now. Let's start at the very beginning. Literally the first kiss any human-like creature ever gave. Scientists who study this point to a somewhat gross origin: pre-chewed food. In several primate species, including chimpanzees and bonobos, mothers chew food before passing it to their babies, mouth to mouth. It's called kiss feeding. The mother pre-chews the food, presses her mouth to the infants, and pushes the food in, which means that long before it was romantic, mouth-to-mouth contact probably started as a gross but efficient way to keep a baby alive. But here's the but. Bonobos, our closest relatives alongside chimpanzees, also kiss outside that context entirely. They kiss to make up after a fight. They kiss as a greeting. Researchers have filmed bonobos kissing with tongue. Yes, tongue, purely for social pleasure, with no food involved at all. So, if an evolutionary relative of ours was already kissing purely for social bonding, how many millions of years back could this behavior actually go? Nobody knows for sure, but the next chapter of this story gets even stranger, because it involves clay tablets nearly 5,000 years old, and a twist that rewrote everything scientists thought they knew. For decades, scientists believed romantic kissing, the way we know it, originated in South Asia around 1500 BCE and spread west centuries later, when Alexander the Great's troops returned from their campaigns in India. Except that, in 2023, researchers reanalyzed texts from Mesopotamia, the region that's now Iraq, written in cuneiform, the oldest known writing system in human history. And they found records of romantic kissing on clay tablets, over 4,500 years old. That rewrote the entire timeline. Romantic kissing didn't originate in one place and spread like a trend. It was already there, documented, far earlier than anyone assumed, which suggests it may simply have been part of human behavior all along, popping up independently across multiple cultures at once. But that discovery hid an even bigger problem, because if kissing is this old and this widespread, why doesn't more than half the planet even do it? A 2015 anthropological study, which looked at 168 cultures around the world, found that only 46% of them practice mouth-to-mouth romantic kissing the way it's understood in the West. That means more than half of documented human cultures simply don't do this. Never have. In several Inuit cultures, for instance, there's the kunik. Two people press their nose and lips against the other person's cheek or nose and take a deep breath, taking in each other's smell. Among the Maori of New Zealand, there's the hongi. Foreheads and noses touch, and people exchange breath, literally sharing the same air. Interestingly, several of these cultures describe those exchanges as more intimate than a mouth kiss, because what they're actually doing is the same thing bonobos and mouth-kissing humans are doing, using the nose more than the mouth to gather information about the other person. And that's exactly the information gathering that explains why no one, anywhere on the planet, does this without thinking twice. Because what's actually at stake isn't romance. It's a much older, much stranger biological calculation. Because when two people get close enough to kiss, the brain isn't processing romance, it's processing data. At under 10 centimeters, your nose can pick up information about the other person's immune system. That's right. Through sweat molecules and a set of genes called MHC, the major histocompatibility complex, your brain can unconsciously detect whether the other person's immune system is too similar to yours or different enough to produce offspring with stronger disease resistance, which means that first kiss might be quietly functioning as a genetic test. But it's not just about genetics, it's about chemistry, literally. During a kiss, the brain releases a mix of dopamine, the same chemical tied to addiction and reward, oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, the same one released during childbirth and breastfeeding, and a drop in cortisol, the stress hormone, which means kissing literally lowers your stress, while simultaneously building bonding and reward in the brain. It's not just a figure of speech to say a kiss is addictive. Neurologically, it's almost exactly that. But maybe romantic kissing is just the tip of something much bigger. Because throughout history, entire societies, not just couples, have used physical closeness as a technology of trust. In the earliest Christian communities, around the 1st century, letters from the Apostle Paul instructed believers to greet each other with a holy kiss, a gesture with nothing romantic about it, and everything to do with alliance, physically confirming you belong to that group and could be trusted by it. Centuries later, in European diplomacy, kings and ambassadors kissed rings, hands, even the feet of other rulers, not out of affection, but because that ritualized physical contact sealed entire treaties and power hierarchies. And the handshake, that gesture that feels completely ordinary today, has a similar origin theory. One of the most accepted explanations is that it started as a way to physically prove you weren't holding a weapon. Even the Maori hongi, that forehead and nose exchange you just saw, wasn't only used between couples, it was used between leaders of rival tribes, at the exact moment they decided to stop fighting. So maybe the question was never just, why do humans kiss? Maybe the real question is, why have humans, in practically every culture, at practically every point in history, always invented some way of pressing one body against another before trusting it? Whether to love, to make peace, or to seal an entire nation. And here's maybe the strangest detail of all. Back on the personal level, kissing is still risky, genuinely risky. The human mouth carries hundreds of species of bacteria. A single kiss can transfer up to 80 million of them between two people. And herpes simplex virus, the one responsible for the classic cold sores, probably spread across humanity precisely through the habit of kissing. Scientists who trace the virus's genetics can actually track ancient patterns of human migration just by following how herpes spread mouth to mouth over thousands of years. So think about that. You're willing to press your mouth, full of bacteria, against another person's mouth, full of different bacteria, risking a virus that could stay with you for the rest of your life, just to feel, for a few seconds, a sense of closeness. That doesn't sound remotely logical. And maybe that's exactly why it works. Because deep down, a kiss was never about hygiene or efficiency. It was always about voluntary vulnerability, about getting close enough to another human being, or to an entire country, or to a circle of strangers around a fire, to let them see, feel, and smell who you really are. No filter, no safe distance, no barrier at all. Maybe that's why, 4,500 years ago, someone already felt the need to write about it on a clay tablet. And maybe that's why, on opposite sides of the planet, cultures that never had any contact with each other each invented, in their own way, a way of pressing one body against another just to say, without a single word, I trust you enough to get this close. Stay curious and stay well.